going to kick things off with my friend Julia, who is going to talk about the phases of Giving Tuesday.
Yes, I'm so excited about this. Similar to Matthew, I worked in nonprofits. I was in nonprofits for 10 years, also served in multiple roles from janitor to receptionist to public speaker to event planner. So we definitely understand all the hats that you all wear, and we're excited to walk through some ways to make one of your many hats a little bit easier, which is planning for Giving Tuesday and end of year. So we'll go through this framework. We want to make sure that we first preface this by saying you are already doing so much, no pressure. These phases that we're going to walk through work for your schedule. I'm not putting dates on these or expectations on these by any means. It's just when you get to one phase or the other, this is what you can tackle in that phase. So phase one is review and goal setting, looking back over your data from last year, analyzing what went well, what didn't. Phase two, segmentation and writing. This is kind of the creation and sending stage. This is the email marketing, the asking, the designing. And then the last is making sure that you're keeping up to date with reporting, your goal updates, and your thank yous. So let's jump into phase one. But before we do that, Matthew, some people are not always super comfortable with setting goals. Why don't you share with us a little bit about the importance or the idea of goal setting?
I'm going to illustrate that by connecting some literal dots that were mentioned a little bit there in the preamble to today's webinar. So, I always use the analogy of goal setting when it comes to fundraising and marketing to a common goal all of you probably have set in your life. Let's take a road trip. So Constant Contact is based in Boston and DonorPerfect is based in Philly. And let's say that I want to go see my friend Julia, who is actually at that office right now. Well, I would, drive along the highway. And how would I know that I accomplished my goal of getting to Philly to see Julia at DonorPerfect? Well, because I'd be at Philadelphia at DonorPerfect, right? That's a very rough example of why you want to set goals. If your goal is to increase your donations year over year, if your goal is to increase your interaction from your subscribers via email, whatever your goals are, you need to set those goals, even write them down. I'll talk about that to know that you've accomplished your goals. The reason for that is that there's no way, and I'm going to actually bring up my experience at my nonprofit. We often try to set goals and work towards things, but often because of limited staff, limited time, limited resources, sometimes we would just go. And the problem is we just go, we don't have any realization at the end point of our project of places that we won and places that we could have improved next year. And so, year after year, we're just flying blind. So you want to set these goals to tee yourself up. But Julia, I want to have you talk a little bit deeper in terms of fundraising goals.
Yeah, so as Matt mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we're going to address a lot of these phases in two prongs. So one is the fundraising lane, just general fundraising best practices. And then one is the marketing lane, how to, get the right message to the right people at the right time. So I will tackle some of the fundraising and Matthew will tackle some of the marketing. So let's start with fundraising, review, and goal setting. This phase one of what we need to do when setting up for Giving Tuesday or really any campaigns. You want to review and set up some goals. First, you want to review your data. Things like who gave to Giving Tuesday last year? What was our income last year? Did people really interact with us? Also, you want to review your budget. So for me, I set my goals based on my budget. If I was going to end up in the black because my budget was ahead of schedule, then maybe my goal was to acquire new donors, not to raise a certain amount of money. But I couldn't know that unless I was able to review my budget and see, oh my goodness, we're short $20,000. We need to really make a financial ask. Or, oh my goodness, we're ahead of schedule $20,000. Maybe let's use this opportunity to get some new givers. So reviewing your budget helps you set your goals. You also need to determine your needs. Things like how much is this campaign going to cost? What do we need to accomplish this year to report back to our board? Things like that will help you with your goal setting as well. Maybe you need to fund a certain project. And then lastly, you want to set the stage. This is your data prep. Like, are you sending mail to addresses that are out of date? DonorPerfect has a tool called DP Address Updater that helps you update your addresses every night. So making sure you're doing things that keep your data up to date, keep your data clean, so that as new givers come in or as repeat givers come in, the data that's coming in is reliable and important. Also, you want to reevaluate your tools and set up a communication plan. All of that is part of setting the stage. So that's a kind of goal setting when it comes to fundraising. Matthew, why don't you tell us about goal setting when it comes to marketing?
Sure. I mean, the same kind of philosophy here. There's three things you'll primarily want to think about. You'll want to review your online marketing efforts, set yourself practical marketing goals, and write them down. That's the second time I've mentioned that. So let's break this down a little bit further. I've been doing this for 12 years. I was the nonprofit for 3.5 years. And, I just admitted that we didn't always set goals for our projects, especially events. But we rarely, and I know that many nonprofits may do this as well. We didn't really do marketing reviews. So as we ran different campaigns, we rarely reviewed what was working and what wasn't. So we weren't reviewing our traffic to our website and were they getting into the pages that we wanted them to get to. We weren't looking at what social channels performed better than others. And we certainly didn't automate the marketing as much as we could have or should have. Now, to be fair to my nonprofit and myself, I don't want to make myself, because somebody's going to go LinkedIn, go look at LinkedIn and see what I worked for. To be fair, there wasn't a whole lot of marketing automation, and social was not as broad as it is now. But we certainly didn't review what worked and what didn't. And so what I encourage you to do, and this is applicable beyond Giving Tuesday, is take a deep look and look at your analytics for your website. Are they visiting your blog, but they're not getting into your fundraising page? Are they not getting to your contact page? You want to make sure that you're pruning information on your website so that people can get to where they want. You do an evaluation if there are some pages that no longer applicable or need to be updated. In terms of social, nonprofits especially, actually for-profits do this too. They try to be everywhere at once. That's very hard. And they will often not use a unique tone for each social channel. Like, to talk broadly, same message, same construction for every social media channel. Monitor, are you getting the likes, the comments, the interaction from social media that you want? And evaluate, is this really a social channel you want to invest time in? So an example of that would be, if you're not getting the kind of behavior that you deserve, let's say on TikTok, right? Well, maybe the time could be better spent on another social channel. And then in terms of automation, I can speak to Constant Contact. There are ways you can automate emails to go out, an email or a series of email. There's ways you can automate SMS. There's ways you can automate social through a variety of tools. So you want to make sure that you're keeping aware of where are places that you can save time. And then you want to look at what you can improve. So, an example of goals around Giving Tuesday and beyond would be, is our contact list growing at the same pace as it was before? And this kind of illustrates why you want to be setting goals for each campaign, because how in the world are you going to evaluate whether your contact list is growing as compared to last year if you didn't track that, right? So all the more reason to start now. Attendance growth. Are you seeing an increase? Are you meeting your goals around getting people to register and attend your events? If not, if you're not seeing registration where you want, well, that kind of goes back into the marketing. Are you following a robust marketing plan? Have you set goals for your marketing? Are you reviewing the results of that campaign? And ultimately, the point of this particular presentation is, are you meeting your fundraising goals? And if you're not, again, evaluating where you are, things that you won with, things that you might have not done as well, is going to not just help you this year, but it's going to help you beyond. I've said it now 3 times. Write this stuff down. Write this stuff down. So when you write things down, you make a commitment to the project, but also it leaves behind that map. It leaves behind that map that guides you through your campaign. So examples of things you could write down is, is our website optimized for mobile? I can hear you shouting at the screen. You can stop right now. Yes, probably all of your sites are, air quotes, optimized for mobile, meaning that they'll redesign themselves based on the device that they're landing on. What I particularly mean with optimized for mobile is the mobile experience cluttered? Is it cumbersome? Is it hard to navigate? That'd be an example of something you want to write down. Hey, let's prune our website. Let's make it a little easier to access on a mobile device. Just one example. Or with an email, do we want to see if we can increase our click rate by 1% during this campaign? Now, that example might sound a little weird to you, right? 1%, that's not much growth. We've got to remember 1%, that could definitely impact your bottom line in terms of donation, just getting a 1% increase in your clicks. On social media, do we have a calendar? We plotted out what we're trying to achieve this quarter, this month for Giving Tuesday. And have we plotted out how we're going to get that there in terms of the content? Another thing I've seen for-profits and nonprofits suffer from is not plotting out their calendar, making sure that they know what messages will go out when, and try to have them coordinated together so that I'm speaking with the same kind of voice and the same kind of philosophy and the same kind of content on social as I am on my blog, as I am in my emails, as I am on my website. Now, we do have a little scan code here. You can actually get a guide to setting your plans and goals. And then I believe Randy is sharing a link for you in the chat as well. But I'm going to throw it over to Julia, who's going to talk to you a little bit about phase 2.
Yes. Okay. So now we've talked about review and goal setting when it comes to fundraising and marketing. Now we're going to talk about segmenting and writing, which is my favorite part of all of this. As a communications manager and a former fundraiser, I love telling people about what's going on in nonprofits and the opportunities they have to be part of it. But it's very, very important that you send it to the right people. So step 1 is acknowledging the importance of donor segmentation. So when we say segmentation, we mean the act of dividing your donors into smaller groups or segments based on shared information or common characteristics. So just the way your story is unique, your mission is unique, the thing that you are supporting in your community is unique, so is your audience. People are drawn to your mission because of their own heart connection. They're not walking down the street and looking for some way to give away money. They're going to be connected to your mission in some way. So figuring out why they are connected to your mission is really important. And then grouping people based on similar things. Those groups can be multiple different kinds of groups. So we'll walk through a few of these: demographic, geographic, behavior, and actions, and we'll give you some practical examples. So here are some examples for demographic groupings or segments. The one on this page that I love the most is if you are looking to target millennial donors, maybe you use a message that says, hey, instead of spending that $5 at Starbucks today, you can spend that $5 to change a life. I know many, many, many millennials who spend $5 a day at Starbucks. So if you say something specific to that demographic group, their age range is what we're looking at here, then you're able to put them in a segment. Another example is a geographic segment. So let's say that you are a food bank and you're looking for people to support your food bank in your area. Maybe you pull a list based on their zip code. People who live in that area will be more interested in supporting that food bank. They want to help their community. So if you're messaging people in the 33301 area saying, hey, we have a food bank in your neighborhood and we need your help, that will hit home far more than messaging someone out of state that just happened to give to you from a different need. This is a more specific way to segment your donors based on geographic data. And then lastly, you can segment your donors on behavior. So things that maybe you want your donors to do more of, or actions you want to replicate. For example, people who gave on Giving Tuesday last year. In this case, you want to replicate that action from those givers. So specifically messaging them and saying, hey, you gave last year on Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday is coming up again. We would love for you to consider giving again. That not only says, hey, we noticed you last year. Hey, you're important to us. And hey, we need you. All because you segmented based on a behavior. Now, again, these are some fundraising segments. Matthew, how about you tell us about some marketing segments?
This is my favorite subject to talk about. And the reason I love talking about it is because, as you can imagine, with all the people that I've taught, everybody's looking for that prime tip, that secret sauce. What is the one thing I can do? And the reality is, well, this is actually a complicated answer. Segmentation. The reason for segmentation is this third word: relevancy. Relevancy is the secret sauce of email marketing, and quite frankly, most marketing. The idea is that you try to segment people into smaller groups, just like Julia just talked you through, into smaller groups so that you can send relevant email content to them. The more relevant the content is, the more likely they're going to take action. I guarantee you, in your inbox right now are emails from organizations you care about, organizations you've donated to, bought from, events you've attended, that you don't see anymore because at some point they taught you that their content was irrelevant. Probably never did anything in terms of unsubscribing or marking them as spam. They just sit there, you don't see them anymore. So why target? Well, to produce higher results. Why segment? To produce higher results. You'll see less unsubscribes because you're providing that relevant content. You're going to see more action and engagement because what you're putting into your email is connected to their geography or connected to their background or their passion or their interest. And the reason you're all attending, you're going to see higher online giving rates because that content you're delivering is as tailored to the audience as possible. Now, Julia gave you some fantastic tips around fundraising segmentation. I want to talk to you about email segmentation and what you need to pay attention to. So we're going to talk about behavior. Okay. Constant Contact will report to you who opened your email, who clicked on links in your email. Well, most people assume open is the most important part of this, but it's not. It's the clicks. The clicks proves the email was delivered, proves it was opened, proves it was read, and specifically tells you what they read. They tell you that by clicking on a link in your email. What you want to do is pay attention to what people are clicking on and use that to segment your audience into smaller groups. That way you can send that targeted content that's relevant to them. How do you know it's relevant to them? Because they clicked a link in the email telling you so. Also helps you increase, are things you want to pay attention to also is the frequency of engagement. So through Constant Contact, you can actually collate people that are regularly interacting with your email, or let's flip it over and say people that are not regularly interacting with my email. That tells you something as well. By knowing who's not clicking on links in my email, especially if they're not regularly doing so, I may want to try a whole different kind of email campaign to them, or maybe try some other kind of marketing to reach these people. You also want to pay attention to things like what list they're on and how they're interacting with others on that list. And Constant Contact gives you the ability to tag people by their geography or by their background or by their interests. And that's another way you can segment people out. Segmentation and why? Well, I think Julie and I have made a pretty good case so far, but let's talk about email marketing metrics. Personalized emails that are targeted and relevant can receive a 11% higher open rate, but the number that actually impacts your bottom line is at 27. Personalized emails receive a 27% higher click rate. Why? Because you're delivering that relevant content. Now, if you are a current Constant Contact user or would like to join us at some point, there is a feature in Constant Contact that really helps you with segmentation. It's called click segmentation. And when you're adding a link into Constant Contact email, ideally to information on your website or a place to donate, you have the ability to enable click segmentation. I have an example of that on the far left. When you do that, people that receive your email and click on the link, of course, they're going to go to your website or wherever you're driving them to, but behind the scenes, that contact who clicked on that link is added to a new or existing list. Constant Contact will automatically segment based on behavior. Now, you could just sit there with that list of people that clicked on that link based on the content that was inside the email, But savvy marketers will actually use that information, that collated segmented list, to target people with similar content. But all of this is for naught if we don't ask the right way. I didn't phrase that well, but Julia, you want to talk about including the
I
ask?
know what you mean. Yeah, Matthew alluded to the fact, like, we can send things to the right lists at the right time, but if we're not saying the right thing, what good does that do us? We need to
How,
make sure as fundraisers to include the ask. Were you gonna say something,
I said,
Matthew?
how ironic that I fumbled my words around asking the right
That's
way.
okay.
All right.
Honestly, that is the case for all fundraisers. I feel like as a fundraiser, the ask was always really difficult for me. And Matthew and I have talked about this a lot, but it's hard as a fundraiser to talk about money, which is so funny because that is our job, is to raise funds. But we have a great opportunity not only to raise funds, but to communicate impact. The reason that you're looking to raise money has to do with impact, not with dollars and cents. So being sure that you're communicating the ask in the right way to the right people at the right time is a very important three-legged stool. You can't do one without the other two. So we're going to talk a little bit about including the ask in certain segmented lists. So we want to make sure that we make each ask feel personal. Like I said, each of your donors gives to your organization for a specific reason because they are heart connected to what you're doing. So we want those asks to feel personal. Maybe you reach out, like I said, to people who gave last year on Giving Tuesday. Hey, we know you gave last year. We would love for you to give it again this year, and this is why. Also, you can create an email template that you tweak based on your groups. So maybe people who usually give $10, you want to ask them to give 15, and you can say, hey, we know that you usually give $10 in order to stock the pantry shelves full of mashed potatoes, but this year we really need to stock the pantry shelves full of gravy. We would love for you to give $15 instead of 10. Very personalized ask, very impact driven, and it shows the donor that you know who you're talking to. It's not some mass email asking for an ATM gift. This makes them feel very called to action, which is helpful. Also, you can add in dynamic content, being sure that you use information that you already know about your donor. This is something that's really beautiful about the connection between DonorPerfect and Constant Contact. Is DonorPerfect helps you track all your giving, track your giving behaviors, track your fundraising solicitations, but then you can pull that information into Constant Contact and say, dear specific name, we would love for you to be part of this campaign because you were part of this other campaign last year, you gave this much, and this is the impact you made. You're able to do that with dynamic content through DonorPerfect and Constant Contact. And that, again, builds relationship, builds trust between you and your giver. And then lastly, we talk about email series. Once they give, whether they give a gala or on Giving Tuesday or on the last day of the year, which are always the most exciting ones for me because you never know what your end of year is going to look like, they are then triggered into an email series, which again is a connection between DonorPerfect and Constant Contact. You can set up these welcome series. You can set up automated emails based on how they engage. You can be sure to explain to them how to upgrade their giving and use things like newsletters or invitations to include them in future opportunities. So using the ask in the right way will set yourself up on a long-term solution for communicating with your partners. And you want to make sure that they know they are personal people to you, that they mean something to your organization because their gift is making an impact.
And leveraging that ask in the right way is a bit for naught if they can't see the ask. If we don't design our email, if we're using email marketing, we don't design the email in the right way. So some stats that probably won't surprise you, but illustrates the point I'm going to make in a moment. is the impact of mobile on email readership. So 86% of the audience, more than 86% of the audience of the world owns a smartphone, right? That's not a big shock. 88% regularly check their email on a smartphone. I'd be willing to bet you have checked your email on your phone today. Those of you doing it right now, put down the phone, listen to what we're saying. And the average time a person spends reading an email now is about 9 seconds. Dirty little secret I may have said on Alignable before is people don't read email, they scan and they skim them. And so we need to keep that in mind as we design our email. So let's talk about some email design best practices. The email starts with what is seen in the inbox, and that's called the header. That's going to be where you can see things like the sender's name, subject line, things that you're probably familiar with. So you want to make sure you're using a recognizable from name. For most of you, that is going to be your name, the name of your organization. If you use an acronym and that is what is most recognized, the acronym, use the acronym. What you want to try to avoid is an email coming directly from the executive director or the board president of something of that nature. I can hear you screaming at the computer right now. All right. I know. But the thing is that people mostly open an email based on the sender's name. If somebody's opening the email regularly because they know the executive director's name, the problem is if the exec director leaves, they're taking the brand equity with them. Board president cycles out, they're taking the brand equity with them. So generally you want to have it come from your organization's name. You want to make sure that you keep it relatively short, about 4 to 7 words for your subject line. Anything longer is going to get cut off. And make sure that whatever reply to email address you use in bulk marketing, like Constant Contact, that inbox is regularly monitored. There's a little bit of text right underneath the subject line called the pre-header text, and it should be a little bit of information to add context to your subject line. An example of that in nonprofits would be your subject lines talking about your annual gala. Use the pre-header text to talk about the time and date and place. You also want to keep that relatively short, about 6 to 11 words. Some other things to think about: make sure that you push your brand colors throughout the entire email, reflecting your brand through things like the border, through things like the buttons. Brand is mostly recognized by color, not images. So the brand colors that you're using in your email is going to help people relate to you even stronger, even faster. And that 9-second window of time, that's really helpful. You also want to make sure that you use images in your email. Images speak 1,000 words. And if people are only spending 9 seconds in the email, that's buying us some valuable time. Now, let me stress that our goal is to get them in the email and out to your website, out to your donation page, out to your blog, out to your social as quickly as possible, because that's where you will get more time with them. That's where they do read more diligently. That's where they weigh pros and cons and positives and negatives. While images are powerful, you want to keep them succinct. You want to have no more than about 3, not including your logo. If you put in too many images, now that's too much information for people and they don't know what to focus on. Text, you want to keep your text relatively short to about 25 lines of text overall. Now, my nonprofit brothers and sisters, I'm going to stand on my soapbox for a moment. Nonprofits, you tend to write the longest emails in the world. They go on and on and on and on. Talked about setting goals. We talked about writing those goals down. We talked about doing a marketing review. This is the kind of thing you might want to look at, because really long emails are no longer as effective as they used to be. In terms of the actual fonts, you want to have a 21-point font for your headlines and a 14-point font for your body text. Always use call to action, things like buttons. You can see examples of buttons in this email. Buttons are powerful because people know that they're supposed to push your buttons. And so it's a very easy to see and access way to get people to your donation page, your blog, or wherever you're trying to drive them. And then your footer. The footer is a great place and the most common place where people are going to look for it for things like contact information and your social media links. We are almost at we're actually at phase 3. So Julia, let's talk about phase 3. What's phase 3 all about?
Sure, yeah. So we went through phase 1, which was review and goal setting, phase 2, segmenting and writing, and now phase 3, we're going to talk about executing and stewarding, mainly setting yourself up for success for next year. So next year, you're going to have to return to phase 1, which is review and goal setting. So in order to review and set goals, you're going to need the right reports. So let's talk through a few reports. First and foremost, these reports are in order to know your donors' actions. You want to be able to say, we know that you gave X amount, or we know that you're interested in X program because you have these reports. So for the sake of time, I'll just run through a few of these examples. One of them is donors by giving level. This one is, your gift funded this certain gift or this certain project. So maybe somebody gave $500 and you can say, hey, your $500 gave 500 lunches to these students at this school. You made a difference in 500 lives. So being specific about the giving level has to come from a report. Another example is gifts by date. Maybe you want to look at who gave in Q4 last year and start messaging them now to say, hey, we're getting ready for Q4. Here's the program we're looking to fund, and we'd love for you to be part of it. Another example is a solicitation analysis. You set up the form so that it's automatic, that your solicitation code is correct. In DonorPerfect, we offer forms with your DonorPerfect system. And when you set up a form, you can tag your specific solicitation code. So maybe your code is Giving Tuesday 2023. Maybe your code is Q4. Maybe your code is our year-end gala. Either way, you can pull a report based on those solicitation codes. In the next couple of slides, never mind. No, no problem. There we go. These next couple of slides actually just break down these reports a little bit further, but for the sake of time, I think we can fly through these and you'll be able to see them later on the recording. Matt, what are some email reportings that people can rely on when they're looking through their email statistics?
You were cruising through those report bullets so fast. I was like, oh, I wonder if he wants me to skip ahead to this. And
I'm sorry. No, you're
it's all right. It's all right. Everybody, you're seeing behind the scenes a little bit of when one person's controlling the slide deck for the other person. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about some key email reports. And I've already given away the big secret in this. So firstly, here are the email reports that Constant Contact provides. Opens tells you how many people open the email. Clicks tells you what links they clicked on. Bounces means something came back. You all have seen a bounce. A bounce, if you send an email out and you get a reply that somebody's on vacation, that is a bounce. Send something out, something else comes back. Spam report, that is going to be human beings that marked your emails spam and unsubscribe. Somebody left your list. So let's talk about the two obvious kind of bad ones, right? So somebody marking you as spam, everyone is going to be marked as spam. It happens. You just want to monitor it, the number, and see, okay, is it increasing over time? Then maybe there's something about our content that's alienating people. Unsubscribes, everyone unsubscribes to a list. Let them go. Let them go, because you know what they're not going to do? They're not going to donate. They're not going to attend. They're not going to volunteer. They don't want to listen to you. So just let them go. Can people accidentally unsubscribe? Sure. But it's not very common. Bounces actually is one you may have not thought of as bad, but there are a couple of different kinds of bounces that can be bad in the sense that you're sending to people that don't exist. The most common kind of bounce is because the email address is either a typo or a fake. It's a good thing to pay attention to and clean out that list, save yourself a little bit of money. But let's talk about the two positive ones. Opens really don't tell us anything. Doesn't tell us that they read it. Maybe it was a preview. Maybe it landed on an Apple device, which, for lack of a better word, automatically opens your emails anyway. Clicks proves the email is delivered, read, and tells you specifically what people were most interested in. And that is ultimately the metric to pay attention to the most. Now, what we haven't done yet is talk about the peanut butter and jelly. So DonorPerfect, Constant Contact really integrate very, very deeply together. And so one thing I'm going to encourage you to do is attend a demo tomorrow where we'll talk about the integration deeper than we are right now and talk about the advantages of leveraging these two powerful tools in concert. One of the items I'm going to talk about tomorrow, but I'm going to give you a little sneak peek right now, is the fantastic DonorPerfect templates. When you get Constant Contact and DonorPerfect together, you have access to pre-made templates by the experts in the field. So there is 35 years worth of experience in these 30 plus email templates designed to cause the effect that you want. Those best practices I talked about before, most of them are tackled in these templates. Thinking about where you should put your ask and how you should ask, that's already been solved for in these templates. All you do is put in your nonprofit information, your logo, etc., and let DonorPerfect's experience help you even further. And as you might suspect, data also is a benefit in the Constant Contact DonorPerfect relationship. Julia's going to talk a little bit about that.
Yes, so the integration of the data is incredibly important. As we've touched on multiple times throughout this presentation, showing that you know your donor when you're communicating with them is incredibly important. So the integration between DonorPerfect and Constant Contact makes it easy to share your story and your mission, knowing who your donor is, knowing what they're interested in, knowing what they've given to in the past, knowing their giving capacity. This is all helpful when communicating with people through the DonorPerfect and Constant Contact integration. Additionally, this syncs nightly. So if your information is updated throughout the day and you have an email tomorrow, it will be going to the right email address with the right information, which for me was so important when I was using Constant Contact and DonorPerfect together. I knew I could rely on this integration in order to do the right thing to the right people. And then lastly, you can set filters in DonorPerfect that make sure that it's the most receptive audience. Again, people who gave to Giving Tuesday last year, you want to send them an email that says, "Will you give again?" If that email goes to people who didn't give to Giving Tuesday last year, maybe you're going to get a bunch of phone calls from people who are like, "Wait a second, are you saying that I gave when I didn't give?" And that just adds a lot of confusion and a lot of work for you, which again, Matthew and I know how that goes. So setting the right filters, communicating with the right audience is an incredible benefit for the DonorPerfect Constant Contact integration. Additionally, DonorPerfect wants to offer you a special gift today. We talked a little bit through the phases of Giving Tuesday. This Giving Tuesday cheat sheet will give you those phases a little more in depth. It also goes through some of the roles that each of these phases may have tasks for. Even if it's just you by yourself, you kind of change your hat between, the strategic person and the communicator. It helps you break down which tasks fall under which role, and it provides some checklists. So please feel free to scan this QR code and get some information about how to set up your year-end strategy using phases, checklists, and role specifics.